All right, everybody, this is Andrew Kraft. We're being joined now by Dr. Peter Chin Hong, the infectious disease specialist at UC San Francisco. Doctor, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on, Andrew, as always.
Let's get right to the news of the day, though. Johnson & Johnson, said their vaccine had 66% efficacy. It's only one dose, one shot, not two, like Pfizer or Moderna. Were you surprised by this number? And can you kind of give us some of the differences between the vaccines that will soon be out there?
So overall, I'm not surprised by this number because it included very different parts of the world. So it's like comparing apples and oranges. We know that the South African variant is very much prevalent there and as more than 75% of the population. When you look at the US data alone, it looks a little bit better at around 72%. So, as expected for an adenovirus vaccine and a one-shot deal, you can't beat that. In terms of the differences, Pfizer, Moderna, mRNA vaccines, they take the message in a liquid sort of fatty bubble, deliver it to the cell. The cell says, I'm going to make some of these spike proteins based on that message. AstraZeneca, J&J, adenovirus vector vaccines, they use a spaceship to bring that message. And that spaceship is an adenovirus, like one that causes a common cold, but it's been inactivated. So it can't really reproduce itself once it gets into the body. It's just like a vehicle. It's that spaceship that brings the message. At the end of the day, both kinds of vaccine make that spike protein, or the body makes a spike protein in response to the message. And our immune system reacts to that spike protein by making antibodies.
We heard a lot of this phrase lately about these vaccines. Is it with a dead virus? Would that be kind of a short-term way of describing it?
Yes, but it's not COVID or SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID, as the dead virus. It's the dead part or inactivated part is just something else that's just bringing the message into the cell.
I see.
And then that message is taken up. So it's not live at all and has nothing to do with SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID.
I want to talk about vaccine production because, Pfizer and Moderna, in what I would say is a modern scientific miracle, getting this vaccine on the market. What took J&J and AstraZeneca, a little bit longer? They were still in their stage 3 trials. Regulators took a little longer to approve them. They had some hiccups here and there with trials themselves. What do you make of that, just kind of the delayed timetable?
So first of all, these are very different vaccine styles of production. I would say that Pfizer and Moderna use this really sort of space age technique of mRNA. So it's actually a little bit easier to produce once you have buy-in to the technology. So essentially, you have the map of the virus, which was sequenced in like a record few hours. You basically cut and paste that message for the spike protein, and then you just encase that messenger RNA that makes the message, that is the message, in a liquid fatty bubble. So it's just a matter of cutting and pasting. I don't mean to be simplistic, and put it in a fatty bubble. Mm-hmm. In the AstraZeneca and J&J, the reason why it takes so long is that you have to tend to these adenoviruses and then put it in another cell, a culture medium to sort of manufacture them and then put the message into something else that once was living and then move it into the human. So there are more steps to that process.
I see.
And it's harder to scale up.
I see. So, for someone who wants to get the vaccine, when all these vaccines are going to be on the market eventually, there'll be, 4 or 5 of them. What would you tell just your average American when they're deciding, when it's their turn to go get the vaccine, which one to go to? Would you say Pfizer, Moderna, because it is more effective, or, if that supply has been depleted, maybe go get the J&J one? How should we kind of, distinguish between them?
So at the end of the day, like you said, Andrew, right now we don't have a choice, but if hypothetically speaking, we had a choice, mm-hmm. It might be a one-shot deal that's appealing to a lot of folks. Again, you don't have to keep it in a deep freeze. If you have a history of severe allergies, maybe it's a little bit better because you don't have that fatty bubble. That's probably the reason why although very, very, very rare, people are having severe allergic reactions to. So that might send you more towards a J&J or AstraZeneca. But if you really want efficacy and sort of speed, maybe the Pfizer or Moderna, particularly Pfizer might be the way. Again, 3 weeks in between shots and 1 week after the last shot, 95% efficacy. J&J, one shot, but you kind of have to wait about a month to get that sort of like 60 to 70% efficacy, depending on the region of the world that you're going to.
I see. Just before we started speaking with you, the FDA issued guidance about the number of doses in a coronavirus vaccine vial. Usually it's 5 doses. A lot of healthcare workers are trying to extract that 6th dose, just if there's any leftover vaccine. What do you make of that? Should that be, suggested for healthcare workers to try to get as much out of the vial as possible, even though, possibly the syringe might not be able to extract it?
Yeah, so it's well known that the Pfizer original vial had 6, even though it was labeled as 5. And that's when you talk to pharmacists, it's actually a very normal production issue of what's called overfilling. But right now, Pfizer, I think, wise up to that. So they're including that as the full dose 6. So when you hear the current administration saying, they're ramping up to more, they're including that 6 instead of 5. But it is safe. It's modified. It's not just like 3/4 of a dose. It's actually a real full dose.
I see. I was seeing some news today as well that, Pfizer is skeptical about these new variants. We know the virus is mutating very, very rapidly with all these new variants. So they're still not sure if their vaccine will be able to safeguard against it. What have you seen in relation to that?
So right now, with the current state of variants in the world, we know that Pfizer and Moderna, the sort of the dynamic duo, they have data efficacy against the UK variant. They have data efficacy against the South African variant. Even though it might be a little bit less, it's still going to be effective. There are questions about the Brazilian variant, which is kind of a little bit scary for me because it has 2 superpowers instead of 1, which is like increased transmissibility. It has the superpower of possibly being able to get COVID again twice. And then we don't know about the California variant, but for all intents and purposes, it probably is going to be effective for that. But we're in a race against variants. We're in a race against time, because the more we wait with a large number of people with COVID, the more that virus is going to mutate and then potentially cause something that won't be covered by the vaccines.
I see. I want to just transition here. A huge debate right now that's going on amongst teachers, parents, school districts, the Biden administration, et cetera, is how do we get children back into the classroom and not having to do remote learning anymore? Because kids, it's not recommended that they get vaccinated if they're under the age of 16. You have some school districts, Dr. Chin-Hong, that are saying, we are not going, the teachers are saying, and the teachers' unions are saying, we are not going to get back into the classroom until the students themselves are vaccinated. So there seems to be this fault line there, and they can't come to an agreement on it. What's your advice and thoughts on children and the vaccine?
So first of all, we don't have data yet in kids. It'll be coming soon, but we need data under 16 in Pfizer and under 18 in Moderna. But for me personally, the burden of disease is not in the kids, it's in the teachers, particularly in kids under 12. There's tons and tons of data right now from lots of places with that particular risk group being less likely to both get COVID as well as transmit COVID. Sure, they do get it, but it's much less riskier, and it's riskier for the teachers. Again, as long as they're social distancing and PPE available, which I know the Biden administration is funding, it should be okay. And again, as you follow certain guidelines, the UK, France, other countries kept schools open even in their worst surges. So I think, I'm worried about the kids, particularly the kids in elementary school, just having a bigger divide because private schools have been open all this time.
That's right.
We're talking about public schools.
Right. And also, this conversation is happening as well with the backdrop of this is even happening with teachers once they get vaccinated. They're saying that they still don't want to get into the classroom if the kids aren't vaccinated. So it's quite a controversial position to take. Also, the CDC has issued guidance saying that schools' classrooms are a low transmission zone for the virus. They're not like, eating inside a restaurant or going to a crowded, sporting event or concert or something like that. So yeah, we'll be following that debate for sure. Just final thoughts on that?
Yes, my daughter is, in a parochial school, and I just dropped her off to school this morning. And I think she and her teachers feel very safe, even though her teachers haven't all been vaccinated yet. So, as a parent, I've been monitoring that situation very closely, and they've put a lot of safeguards in there to make it a very safe environment. I know it may be different in different places, but for right now, in my environment, I feel very safe.
All right, and just lastly, Doctor, we've been seeing this team from the World Health Organization finally be let in to Wuhan to kind of investigate, the origins of the virus itself. Was it, spilled over or escaped from the virology lab there, or did it come and transmit to humans from animals at this wet market in Wuhan? They're investigating that at the moment. What are your opinions on the Biden administration's plan to re-enter the World Health Organization and the World Health Organization writ large as it relates to its relationship with China?
So first I'll answer the easier question. Well, actually both of them are decently, I have answers for, but in terms of the World Health Organization and all being part of it, I'm so excited. I was so embarrassed when we were not part of the World Health Organization. This is a virus that doesn't care what country you live in. It could be in Samoa or Trinidad or the United States. Unless we care about the rest of the world in terms of vaccinations, we're going to be, messed up because we can't open the world's economy, which relies on open borders until everyone is safe. In terms of going into China, I applaud that because again, there's been so many myths, so many conspiracy theories around that. So if somebody that is as objective as possible goes in, and if the Chinese government collaborates with that group, dispelled. As an infectious disease doctor, it's so unsurprising that animals are the reservoir for many of these new viruses. This is not just a COVID thing. We've seen that before multiple times, not just in China, but Ebola or Marburg virus, which is from Germany, or even Lyme disease in the US. So these are things that are part and parcel of us moving into the parts that we haven't settled in before.
All right, yeah, and with the World Health Organization, many people here say it's about a year too late for the Chinese to let those investigators in. Dr. Peter Chin Hong, the infectious disease specialist from UC San Francisco, thanks for giving us your time today on this Friday.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
All right, that was my conversation there a little earlier this afternoon with the doctor. We hope you enjoyed that. That was kind of a little time